Does this mean the KRONOS has finally died? Okay, if you subscribe to the Korg newsletter, I was going to say newsletter, but it's not. A few weeks back, you would have got a notification via an email stating that the Korg UK website was now live. Now, this is a website in its own right, as opposed to the UK section of the main Korg.com website. And basically, if you go on to korg.co.uk, which is the website they've just made live, you will see a number of noticeable changes. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So, change number 1. You can now buy direct from Korg. Korg have opened a direct sales channel through their website. And I'm pretty sure this was not a feature of the old website, although I stand to be corrected. I'm pretty sure that this is a brand new feature, this direct channel. Up to this point, if you wanted to buy a Korg keyboard, such as this beautiful thing behind me, then you would have had to go to a retailer to buy it. But now you can buy your favourite Korg directly from Korg. Now, is there going to be a price differential between the direct channel and the retailer channel? Don't know at this point in time, but I do know they are starting to offer deals direct. So, the other thing you can get direct is you can also get your insurance directly from Korg. So if you're going to take out some sort of liability, breakdown insurance, whatever it happens to be, of one of these superb beasts, then you can buy that directly from Korg. You don't have to go through the affiliate of the retailer. Is that good or bad? Don't know. The other thing I've noticed very much now is on the Korg.co.uk and the Korg.com website is they're now looking to sell off what they call refurbished stock through this web channel. Now, I suspect that a lot of this stock is going to be demo stock that's been pushed out to influencers in the market space and musicians for them to evaluate and do YouTube videos and do Korg promotion videos, and it's come back and it just needs sort of a tidy up. Maybe it's got a couple of scratches and dings that need to be, you know, they need to put a new front plate on it or something like that. Now, the question is really is the two things that we see here with this Korg website. Number one, the direct channel. Is this something we're going to see from other manufacturers? Now, I looked this morning at the Yamaha website, and I also looked at the Roland website, and neither of those have currently got a direct channel. So they're still through the retailers, but I wonder whether they may now start to put the web channel in place so you can buy direct from the manufacturer, cutting out the retailers. Now, the thing I have to turn around and say is this a good move? I'm not sure at the moment. My feelings are mixed about buying direct from the manufacturer. I know that I bought this from Anderton's in Guildford. Okay, that's my Anderton's plug. I bought this from Anderton's in Guildford when I bought this. And in fact, I've bought most of my brand new keyboards from Anderton's in Guildford. And the reason why I've done that is two factors. Number one, they're in Guildford. I can go and shout at someone. And they pick the phone up as well. That's one of the reasons. Number two, it's a really good music shop, and I believe in giving them business. So that's another reason why I use Anderton's. I mean, I have used, there's another couple of shops around here, but I don't tend to use them. I tend to use the one in Guildford, purely because it was, when I lived that way, local to me. And the second and the third reason why I use them is because I have been in their shop for several hours with a pair of headphones playing this thing, or something like this, before I purchased it. and they didn't care. Now, the fact that I was sitting on one of these machines for several hours, they didn't care, because at the end of the day, they're going to get a sale out of it. So that's kind of my first thing, is if we start buying direct from the manufacturer, is that going to devalue the retailer channel? And I think the retailer channel is actually quite important. So anyway, that was change number 1 to the Korg.co.uk website. And now we come on to change number 2. And this is the real subject of this video, death of the Kronos. Now, that's my Kronos. I've got a Kronos 2. Those that watch the channel know I have a Kronos 2. I've had it for many years, although it hasn't really featured very much on the channel. I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that there are some very, very savvy musicians out there with YouTube channels that do a lot more with the Kronos than I have been doing. And you know, for the last 2 years this has effectively been sitting in storage because I don't have room where I am. But I have got it back here at the moment, so I have been reacquainting myself with this beautiful keyboard. But when you go and look at the Korg.co.uk website, what you will notice is there is no entry in the Workstation section for Kronos, which I take it to mean that Kronos has officially stopped shipping, and Korg are trying to move us onto the Nautilus platform. Now, if like me, you believe that Nautilus is a very, very functional keyboard, but it is no Kronos, then that probably means that a lot of people are going to be sitting there thinking, I don't want to buy Nautilus, and that may be why Korg have stopped shipping Kronos, to force people now to pick up the Nautilus platform. And by the time you see this video, which I suspect will be late December, because this is early December and I'm several weeks behind in post-production, I suspect the Kronos will have been removed from the main Korg website at that point in time. So if you're looking at .co.uk, it's not there today. If you're looking at the main .com website, I suspect by the time you see this video it won't be there either. And you know, as I said, I've got written in my notes, and sitting behind me is my Kronos 2. This is such a beast of a machine, and I can understand why Korg have supported this in various guises for the last 10-11 years. Yes, that is correct. 10-11 years. This has been in the market space for nearly 11 years. The first inversion was the original Kronos, and that was brought out in 2011, although it didn't really hit the streets until 2012. But it was 2011 when the first one of these sort of started to ship and went through NAMM in North America. And the influencers of the day, the people like Jordan Rudess and Rick Wakeman, all got hold of one of these things and started promoting it. And I can understand why, because these are the guys that were kind of, or are still, pushing the frontiers of music that is played on a keyboard. I mean, I don't know how Jordan Rudess's fingers move so damn quickly, I have to be honest, because mine don't move that quickly. And again, those that watch the channel also know I own an Oasis 88. Now, my Oasis 88 has now gone back to storage, so it's going to sit in storage over Christmas now, because I'm not going to go and get it out. And the Kronos was effectively the replacement for the Oasis, which was discontinued in 2010. And I think the reason why Korg discontinued the Oasis and brought the Kronos out was twofold. The first was price point. The Oasis was shipping at close to $8,500 by the time you factored in all the bits and bobs you wanted. So that was the upgrade engines and all the other stuff that went with it, upgrade memory. And that, while there were people out there that were actually paying that much money, I think Korg wanted to bring the price point down. And there are some notable differences between this Kronos and the Oasis 88 in terms of the Oasis 88 piano is, or the action of the keyboard, is better than this. But I have to be honest and say, I mean, I can feel it, I can feel it, but I'm no concert pianist. And I expect somebody who actually plays a hammered action keyboard for a living will be able to give you the ins and outs of the differences. But it is different. I would say the 88, the Oasis 88 is a sweeter action for me, but it's not a better keyboard. This is far better. Is a far better keyboard in all round terms. But a lot of the features of the Oasis and this Kronos are much the same. It works in very much the same way, the way that patches are constructed, the way it goes about sampling, the way you construct your programs and your combis and the concepts of engines, all very, very similar, if not the same, between the two platforms. I mean, for me, having this and then buying an Oasis, I had very little trouble being able to navigate my way around the Oasis because of this. Yes, it doesn't have as many of the knobs and whistles that the Kronos had, but you can still understand how to get there, how to make change the settings, how to change the parameters. All that is very, very familiar if you've owned one of these. And what I would have to say about Nautilus is that due to COVID, pretty much in the UK, I haven't really ventured out very far. You know, I've had to go away on work a couple of times, but in terms of actually venturing out to the shops, to sit in a shop and play a keyboard, I haven't really done that. So I've yet to really play a Nautilus to understand how Nautilus really compares to my Kronos 2. The videos suggest it's not far off, but there are some noticeable changes around things like Karma doesn't appear on the Nautilus. Karma is an integral part of the Kronos, and funny enough, the Oasis, which is where a lot of the development was done for the Korg platform. And you know, the people, if you've watched the channel, you will know people have been sort of arguing about which is better. Is the Nautilus better? Is the Kronos better? Would you buy a new Nautilus or a second-hand Kronos? Or would you go and buy something else? And that was, funny enough, a video I did 18 months ago. Was, you know, I think the Upstart is starting to encroach into this market, the market that would have gone and bought the Kronos. I think the Upstart, the Phantom, is really starting to encroach in that. But as it's been pointed out to me recently in some of the mailbag sessions, the the Kronos still has it, but it doesn't. It's not as. It's kind of horses for courses. The way that the Phantom does stuff makes it very appealing for legacy sound generation and playing legacy synths. But in terms of the all-round package, a number of people have pointed out to me, and they are Phantom players, that the Phantom still isn't quite this machine. But the question comes back was, why was this keyboard so pivotal? Well, here's my opinion. Up to the release of the Oasis, manufacturers built circuit boards into the machines with custom chips. That was how synthesizers were made. Manufacturers understood how they wanted to create synthesis, then they had chips made, and those chips were effectively stuck onto a circuit board, and you couldn't really change it very easily. Yes, you could do firmware updates, but how the machine operated was how the machine operated. The Oasis changed this conversation, really. because the Oasis moved to a computer based on a Linux operating system. In fact, actually, it was a custom real-time Linux operating system. And actually, funny enough, this is one of the things that somebody pointed out on the Phantom the other day, that with this machine, and I'll do it now, so if I do that, oops. Bit more of a demonstration I had wanted to, but on this machine you can change the patch while you're playing another patch, and then the next note will play the next patch on, which is what I kind of did. I went through 3 patches there, and that's because this has a real-time Linux. It's based on a real-time Linux operating system, which allows it to do that sort of stuff. Now, this was coupled with a remodeling within the Oasis of the original Oasis DSP, which is Digital Signal Processing card. So way back in the 90s, Korg came out with something called an Oasis PCI card, and basically the whole idea was that you plugged that into your computer and it generated the sounds using this DSP card. The problem with this open synthesis architecture that they developed at that point in time was that the computers of the time just did not have enough horsepower for it. Roll on 15 or so years, 12 to 15 or so years, and all of a sudden we start to get motherboards and computers that can handle or are powerful enough to start handling this processing. And what I'm trying to say is this allowed software to start to be written and run, and that generated the synthesis. And when you wanted to update the synthesis, you just updated the software. The second point of why this machine has lasted so long is that up until the last release of the operating system, every version of the KRONOS could take both the operating system and the firmware updates that Korg were pushing out, which basically means that every version of the KRONOS can load all the synth engines and sound packs and everything else that Korg and various other manufacturers have been making for this keyboard. Now, I don't know why the last version of the operating system was for KRONOS 2 onwards, because I've never really, well, I say I haven't had time to dig into it really, if I'm brutally honest. But the additions that came after the 2 in terms of model numbers are effectively a 2. You know, the bottom line is they are a 2. It doesn't matter whether they're green, gold, platinum, whatever it happens to be. They're effectively inside, they are a KRONOS 2. But the newer versions have a different mix of sound libraries included in the base operating system when they came out of the factory. But effectively, this has meant that every version of the Korg Kronos can use, or has been able to use, the same sound packs and everything else that Korg have issued for it, or any other manufacturer who's doing sound packs, etc., has issued for it. All of them can play the same sounds. That means you don't have to upgrade. If you had an original Kronos, you didn't have to upgrade. If you had a Kronos X, you didn't have to upgrade. If you've got 2, you don't have to upgrade. Up until, as I say, the last pack, that was it. It was very versatile. What do I mean by that? Well, when this thing was launched, it launched with 9 sound engines. Okay, so these are how you generate sounds, and you combine sounds from different engines into your patches, which made it extremely versatile in terms of trying to produce the sounds that you want. The engines were SGX1, which is effectively piano sounds, and these are continuously sampled piano sounds, not looping. Continuously sampled. It's slightly different. There's no pops or anything like that when you listen to the pure sample. These were upgraded to SGX2 from Kronos 2. So the first one was, the engine was called 1, second one was called 2. Then there was an engine for electric pianos called EP1. CX3 was the engine for organs, specifically tone wheel organs, so that's your Hammonds, etc. HD1 was a high definition synthesizer. I say was, it still is. And this is combining sample based synthesis with wavetable modeling. So this is kind of the sort of wave state area. Then we had an MS-20EX, which is an analog synthesis based on the Korg MS-20. Then we have a Poly-6EX, which is the dual DCO based synthesis based on the Korg Poly-6. And there was a video I'm going to make about my experiences of the Korg Poly-61. Then we had AL1, which was a pure analog subtracted synthesizer. Then we had Mod 7, which is a variable phase modulation, which is Korg's version of, say, an FM synthesis. And then we have STR1, which is a plucked synth or plucked instrument synthesis. So it allows you to get sort of those sort of guitar plucks and string plucks that you want to maybe use on something. But they came as standard, and they were all, or are, well, I keep saying using them in the past. It's not in the past, it's still here. They are all damn good. Nautilus has the same 9 engines in it. You know, they wouldn't put these engines into Nautilus if they weren't good. And to cap it off, what this thing gave the musician is sampling and a 16-track sequencer. And I've said on the channel before, you can, you know, actually master something on here. Would you want to? Probably not. I probably wouldn't want to master a piece of music on this particular machine. I'd like to write it on this machine. I'd like to play around with effects on this machine. I'd like to play around with sounds and parts. Yes. Would I master it here? Probably not. I probably would record it into a DAW and then master it out the DAW. Reason for that is flexibility of post-production. This has a lot of flexibility in it, but it's not really you're not really able to change things in post-production the same way you can on a DAW. But you can get damn close to post-production on this machine without having to go to your DAW. So you can do everything you need to on here and then go to the DAW to define, record it all into a DAW, channel by channel, and then go into post-production. So that is, in my opinion, why this machine is so damn good. But basically, back in 2011, when this thing launched, I'll take my notes off it so it becomes, when this thing launched, there was nothing in the market that could occupy the same space. I did a video just over a year ago, well actually it's probably like 18 months ago actually, to be honest, where if I were buying a Kronos as opposed to a Roland Phantom or a Yamaha Montage, and my conclusion it would be a hard choice. Though the Phantom was starting to be a contender. Now the Phantom, with the introduction of version 2.1, becomes more of a contender. Definitely with the Roland plug out, the whole sort of Zen core synthesis plug out mentality that Roland are adopting. Don't be fooled by the plug outs, because you still have to buy them. You have to either subscribe to the Roland Cloud, which admittedly won't break the bank if you're using these sort of things, but you still have to subscribe and buy you have to subscribe to the Roland Cloud. It's not massive amounts of money, but I don't like this whole rental concept. On the flip side, Korg, I don't think are doing anything similar. You buy stuff outright with Korg, rather than the Roland model, which is you rent it. Anyway, if I was buying it now, would Phantom get my cash? And I kind of struggle with that. I think Phantom would get my cash, but that's purely because I'm not sure Nautilus is enough of a difference from this machine to give me the versatility and suite. But the point is, this is 2021. And although Roland may argue they've now produced a credible alternative to the Kronos, how have they done this? Well, basically, what they've done is copied it. Let's not beat about the bush. They've copied the Kronos formula. They've given us a few more knobs and whistles. The Phantom is a computer-driven machine with a flexible operating architecture that generates the sounds, which includes the Zencore engine, which includes the piano engine, which includes the other engines that they're going to bring to the market. But in essence, it is the same formula that Korg developed for this machine. And many manufacturers argue that hardware is dead and VSTs are the way forward. And all I would say, and I will be bold in my statement here, is balls. Take that as you will. Manufacturers thought that we would all retreat to our computers to produce music, and in turn lock us into endless rounds of upgrades and compatibility issues. And I'm not being funny when I say that, because I've seen so many comments on various websites about incompatibility issues, especially with the M1 chip that's just been released by Mac, in that certain pieces of software are now not compatible with the Mac because the software studios haven't got round to writing the relevant extensions they need to make it work on the M1 architecture. They're still kind of stuck in the Mac Intel architecture, which is really interesting because that brings up a whole other dilemma. What's going to happen when Windows 11 comes along? What's going to happen when Windows drops support for 32-bit operating systems? We are getting ourselves into this whole software-driven computer architecture where every time something changes, you're forced to go back and do an update and possibly have to buy upgrades from the manufacturers, rather than being able to do what you've been doing for years, which is operating a piece of software that works perfectly well. I feel a rant coming on in that area, but that is reality. This, yes, you can buy sound packs for it. Yes, you can buy, Korg do occasionally update the operating system and the firmware for this, but reality is you don't need a computer to run this. This will run standalone, and many of my other synthesizers are in exactly the same boat. They don't need computers. Yes, some of them have firmware bugs. I'm thinking specifically of things like the System 8. But the reality is they work. You switch them on and they work. Now, people will say, there's many people who have commented on the fact that when you're boshing this thing around, occasionally it doesn't want to come on, and it's probably something to do with cables being unseated and chips being unseated, and you just need to open it up. Not a great idea when you're on stage, which is why I think many serious performers have multiple Kronoses on the back of the wagon, and if one doesn't fire up, it's just get the other one out, load tonight's performance on, and away you go. But my concern is, we're going down this VST route, and as soon as you start going down the VST route, you start getting into this update. And I'll give you a really good example of this in the fact that if you've seen the channel, if you've been watching the channel, you will know that I've recently acquired a Muse receptor. Now, I didn't acquire the Muse receptor because I needed one. I was really curious about the Muse receptor, and one was offered to me very, very, I don't want to use the word cheap because it wasn't cheap, but at a very reasonable price. So I thought, what the hell, I'll buy this Muse receptor off this person because he just wanted to unload it, and I'd play around with it. And it's very clear with the Muse receptor that without Muse being there, Anything you want to do with the receptor is delve into a user group and spend hours researching what it is you're trying to do. Because Muse as a company has ceased trading, and what they did when they ceased trading is they didn't unlock the operating system. They didn't unlock the serial key system. They didn't unlock a number of things. And therefore, anybody who has a Muse receptor, if it goes wrong, you are kind of up the what's it without a paddle. And I feel a lot of VSTs are going to be in that sort of bracket within a few years, and I mean that quite seriously. As I said, hardware doesn't require a computer. It carries on functioning. Well, most of it does anyway. There is, I think, a place for VSTs. There's a place for plug-outs. There's a place for plug-ins. But the fact that Korg has kept this workhorse running for 10 years is a testament to why people like me can buy hardware. Hardware is not dead. Hardware is a long way from being dead. And it's about time that manufacturers realised that all is not VST. Now, if you're so inclined, you can go and buy a new Kronos. The retailers are still selling them. I've checked the local outlets and they still say that they can get hold of the Kronos 2 and a number of the later models, the titanium or wherever it happens to be. But you can still get hold of them in the UK. But I suspect that stock is going to become scarce very soon, and even a second-hand one, even if you can get a second-hand one, it will still service you very well. If, like me, you haven't upgraded your Kronos, in fact, I have to be honest and say that I haven't actually upgraded this machine in about 3 or 4 years. There's the latest operating system that I need to put onto it, and I will be doing that shortly to get me up to the latest manufacturer patch. Now, if Korg follow form, they will continue to support this keyboard for about 2 or 3 years. They did so with the Oasis, they did so with the Triton before it. They supported it for several years after they actually discontinued it. So I suspect there will be a dying hurrah when Korg will release the last operating system, just like they did with the Oasis, that effectively unlocked a load of stuff. Because that's a responsible manufacturer, as opposed to what I was commenting about earlier about Muse. So I still think we're going to get support from Korg on this beast for a number of years to come. But unfortunately, I think it really is now RIP Kronos. This legacy is going to be extremely difficult to follow. And I'm really not sure Nautilus can fill the gap. Although if someone wants to lend me a Nautilus, hint hint Korg, to confirm one way or the other. I know I've seen recent videos with Rick Wakeman talking about Nautilus and many other. They're starting to bring the big guns to bear on Nautilus now. Because I don't think the uptake of Nautilus is as much as Korg really hoped it would be. And I think that is why, sadly, this machine has now died. And on that note, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.